Hello everyone, this is Kent Cutter here with another BattleShopper breakdown. This week we're going to be bringing you the Empress deck. I know there's a lot of action on the forums right now, a lot of people talking about, oh, this Empress deck is so overpowered and it does this and it does that. But I'm here to show you not that side of things, because frankly, the complaints made on that forum are just irregular. They're wrong. This deck is totally wonderful. I think it's a very healthy deck to be playing in the metagame. So we're going to walk through 4 matches for you, kind of accent some of the things that the deck does. But what I'm going to make sure I emphasize during this gameplay is pointing out the areas where you can interact with this deck such that you can beat it. Hopefully we'll get to play against some of the matchups that aren't too great for it, and then we'll get to play against some of the matchups that are a little bit better. And if we're really lucky, we'll get to play a mirror. So let's start out by breaking down the deck in the main deck here, and then I'll go over the reserves real quick. This deck, by the way, is something that I picked up off of Hex PvP Tools. Changed around a few cards because I wanted to accent, sort of kind of highlight some of the different plans that you can take. This one specifically, though, is not something that I feel like is, this list is not from a particular event or anything in the like. But what I did is I selected the 4 ofs that I think are most important: Tribunal Magistrate, Empress of Ice, and Commander Prompt. Now, those first 2 that I mentioned, I'm sure most of you, watching this at home are already aware. Those are key cards in this archetype, and a lot of people are already playing 4 copies. Commander Prompt is one of those cards that I've seen get reduced in numbers and then put back up to 4, but I'm here to tell you, Commander Prompt is the truth. Simply put, the card is both great at protecting your Empress from Lasgar's Vengeance, while also setting up certain copycat kills in the same way that Magistrate does, where you can go like turn 4 Prompt, double copycat, swing with 3 or 4 troops, and that's +6 power with triple prompt. Outside of that, I really want to kind of show off the way the deck sequences through in the all-important turn 3 versus turn 4 in this deck. There's a lot of sequences where you might have a threat to play out on the 3, but based on your opponent having up Hero Fall, having up some sort of interrupt, you might not actually run that out there and wait until the turn 4 because of the card Copycat. Now, for those at home that aren't aware, Copycat is probably the most powerful card that's available in this archetype. It is a 0 mana effect that will let you get a copy of basically anything on the field, but what's really important about this card is this first one, or excuse me, the second line, then revert that troop. So if somebody has copycatted one of their troops or one of your troops, and then you copycat that troop, you'll get the troop that it was when it comes into play, or whatever it is they copied, but they'll end up with a copycat, a 1/1. That's a very common strategy in the mirror. Maybe you don't run out all your copycats on that turn 4. Maybe you run out 1 and hold the other. You don't run out any. You wait for them to put out their additive effects, their second Magistrate or their third Magistrate. Then you take it back to try to win the game. Now, the main deck, nothing too complicated. You're really looking to try to go hit 4 shard drops, and then on the second turn, maybe cast one of your 2 drops. Not all that important unless you have a consult. On the 3, then it is important. On the 3, maybe play out one of your threats, depending on the pressure your opponent's setting up. But really all you're setting up for is that turn 4 of 4th shard drop, activate the Uzu hero power, put 1 threat in play, and then copycat it to have redundancy. That really helps with things like Empress of Ice, trying to get 2 copies of that in play to lock your opponents out of the game as far as the attack step goes. In the reserves, I brought a little selection of what I saw on PvP Tools that I felt like highlighted some interesting transformational properties. The first thing, it's just the Force Transmografade. You notice I put 1 Treacherous Pass in the main. The reasoning behind that is in the mirror. Transmografading something isn't that great because they just copycat it to get that troop back if that's something they would want. Basically, Transmografade is not a flat removal spell in the mirror, so it's not that fantastic. So we don't want to run 4 in the main. Treacherous Pass, on the other hand, as something that has a copy in the main deck with the other 2 in the reserves, that's a card that can help accelerate your clock if you play that on the 1 and then you Skitter and Cultivate on the 2. Additionally, locking decks like Redlings or some of the Dreadling styles decks out of being able to deal damage with their troops really hurts their ability to close out the game. Sometimes those decks are relying on those Dreadlings for, most or all their damage. The other 2 copies in the reserves are when it's appropriate to have the pass kind of lock type strategy come into play. Arcane Zephyrs and Verdict of the Ancient Kings are both just interrupts or, quick actions to try to deal with what your opponent's doing. Zephyr lines up great against Hero Fall, and Verdict of the Ancient King is really good against sweepers and also Hero Fall. We have the 4th and 5th card advantage spells in the sideboard, Insight and Consult, that tries to help you offset the hero fall matchups by, trimming 1 Magistrate, 1 Empress to get those numbers down to 3. Last card, and this is the one that I am admittedly the most unsure on, but I think it is one that the Hex PvP tools and the Hex meta has shown it to be a very successful card, is the Nazic Web card. Now, it's important to keep in mind that Dreadlings are spiders. So if you have the Skittering Cultivator Treacherous Pass, setup going already, which you do in some of your aggressive or aggressive to mid-range matchups, Nazic gets to board in, try to tap down if they're trying to actually, block your troops. You'll get to control the combat step as you feel fit, meaning you can tap down their important blockers and still get in. On the defensive side, it's a 1/4. So it does get in there, it's able to block maybe your Intrepid Conjurers or your opponent's Dreadlings. When that comes in, I'm not 100% sure on. And the reasoning behind that is, maybe you'd cut your other 2-drop troops, but both of those produce Dreadlings, so it seems kind of weird to cut spiders for your Web Guard. I have a feeling we're going to find that we want the Web Guard maybe in situations where Tribunal Magistrate, might not have as much effect, and getting a couple taps, might be a little bit better than hypothetically loading up our opponent's deck, such as Ruby Diamond Aggro. But I'm really excited to run this deck through the queue. I get to highlight some of the powerful things that the Empress deck does, and hopefully I'll get to show you in some of the ways that you can definitely, try to take advantage or exploit this deck. It does require a certain critical mass of cards in hand to really, take over the game. So maybe we'll run into someone that'll try to both pick off our troops in play and, maybe try to steal some resources out of our hand. Anyway, this was Ken Ketter with the introductory video for Empress in our BattleShopper breakdown. Please join me for 4 matches and then a conclusion video just after this. Thank you so much.